what's going on, guys? My name's Chopper. So today we are going to be talking about Tranzit, and we're going to be going in detail the story. I made a video a couple days ago explaining this, but we're going to go more in detail. So before we get started, guys, let's go for 115 likes on the video. That'd be absolutely amazing, everybody. We're going to go for 115 likes. But a couple of days ago, I made a video kind of explaining how the Call of Duty comics is going to explain basically the backstory of Tranzit, even more in detail than we already know. But I wanted to just basically kind of give a refresher today, and we're going to be going in depth with Tranzit, the actual location, and every single member that we know, kind of their background. So starting off here, we're going to be talking about the actual location of Tranzit itself. Now, it just says Northern Hemisphere when you load up the map, and that's really all it tells you. But what it doesn't say is that, or kind of people have been digging into this, and they found out that it's probably most likely in Hanford, Washington. This makes sense, how Misty and Marlton met and that sort of stuff, but pretty much everything geographically lines up with this being somewhere near Hanford, Washington. But in essence, we really know Tranzit as being a very small town that has just been overrun by zombies recently, and there's only a few survivors, which is, of course, the people that we play as, and these are just after the launches at Moon of the rockets. We know that these are just after the events of Moon, as Richtofen is just getting used to the ether. As soon as you pick up a bonus, like whether it be a nuke or an insta-kill, something like that, you can hear Richtofen kind of come on into the announcer's voice, but he said he's like coughing stuff, he's getting used to the ether, and he becomes the announcer for this map. So basically that is what we know about the location and the setting itself, but now we're going to go in much more detail about the characters and into their backstories, because these Tranzit crew, we haven't had a lot of backstory insight into who they are and where they came from, but what we do have is extremely interesting, and this is of course going to be expanded in the comics, but we're going to go one by one, and we're going to start with none other than Misty, or Abigail Briarton is her real name. So pretty much Misty is the most unknown character, or we don't really have that much info on her at all, but what we do have is that she was, just kind of a small town farm worker, and her parents had ended up being killed somehow. It's believed that her dad was killed by zombies, but we really don't know much else about her other than that the fact that after her parents died, she went on the run, quit her farm life, whatever, and she ended up meeting Marlton Johnson. So what we know about Marlton is that he was hiding in the Nuketown bunker. You guys know on Nuketown Zombies, there's a certain bunker over there that we really tried for years now to open, and it never actually happened. But basically, this is just serves as a storyline purpose, as Marlton Johnson was hiding there when the CDP came through to the Nuketown map. They come to realize that probably a lot of former members of their team have been zombified and turned into the undead, and while all this is going on, Marlton is hiding inside that bunker, and then when the events of Moon happen and the rockets come down and strike the Earth, Marlton eventually escapes with his life, and he's pretty much the only one that gets out alive, and then he eventually ends up traveling probably up north, and then eventually him and Misty end up meeting up and then kind of teaming up and going together. So that's pretty much what you know about Marlton. Now we're going to get to the two more interesting characters. Next on the list we have Stuhlinger, and then we have Ruspin right after that. So Samuel Stuhlinger, during the events of this outbreak, was actually part of an organization known as the Flesh. Now what we know about the Flesh is that Stuhlinger was part of this organization. It was almost sort of like a cult, where basically it was a band of survivors, and they would eat actually dead zombie like flesh and corpses and that sort of stuff, just because they think that it would keep them protected or whatever. But obviously that was definitely not the case. When you eat some of the zombie, you end up getting the infection as well. Now eventually Stuhlinger ended up leaving the group, but we don't really know why. But before he left the group, he ended up eating some of that zombie, and what this did to him was actually not only sort of infect him, but also kind of give him a tunnel to talk to Richtofen, right? Like he could hear Richtofen through the ether. That's really the only reason why he's hearing the voices, while the other characters aren't. Stuhlinger was always really sort of a cautious man. He doesn't really like Marlton or Misty that much at all, and the only person he really kind of tolerates is Ruspin, and he's very conspiracy oriented. He's always talking about aliens or some sort of like government conspiracies. You can hear this in multiple quotes in Tranzit. He's just like a very kind of almost like a schizophrenic guy, like somebody's always watching him or is out to get, and that's just kind of his personality. Whether that's because of the zombie he ate and because of the Flesh group itself, we don't know, but he's always sort of kind of had this weird vibe to him. And we also know that somewhere between the events of Die Rise and Buried, Stuhlinger actually got a hold of the Chronorium. Now, we can see this on his character only in Buried, and I actually asked Jason Blundell personally about this. I said, is the book in Stuhlinger's pocket in Buried the same as the one that Maxis and Nero has? And he said, you know what, that's too deep, I can't answer that. So I said, that's all I need to know, but you can see this book in his pocket. It's this brown book, so somehow he got a hold of it between Die Rise and Buried, as he never had it in Die Rise, so it's something what they did in between those two time periods. Personal theory anyway about how Richtofen got a hold of the Chronorium, which is going to be answered in the comics, but kind of my thoughts on this is that when he switches bodies with Stuhlinger and Buried at the end, if you do kind of like that super Easter egg at the end there, when he actually switches bodies with him, he has it in his pocket, so it would be so easy for Richtofen to actually physically grab it and use it. That's just my kind of theory anyway. Let's see if that's correct. But that right there is basically the information that we know about Samuel Stuhlinger. We know that shortly after when he left the Flesh that he met up with Ruspin somehow, and then eventually they got onto the bus and met Marlton and Misty as well. They kind of banded together as that group of four. So now the last character that we need to talk about is of course Ruspin, and we don't even know if Ruspin is his first or last name. All we really know about him is that he was a former operative at Broken Arrow before meeting up with Stuhlinger and the rest of the crew. During Ruspin's time at Broken Arrow, we know that they were working with Element 115, and not only that, they were trying to open up new dimensions. There's a really interesting quote in Grod Crowley that Sophia says, and she's basically talking about Broken Arrow told them how to open up new worlds, or new dimensions in that. It's basically the same thing, they're synonymous in this. And what I find really interesting about that quote in particular is that is probably explaining where the rift came from and kind of how it came to be. Broken Arrow is probably responsible for the Apothecans somehow getting into this universe. Now we know that there's the whole Apothecan Rift Stone, we do the thing in Shadows of Evil, but maybe this is kind of the Apothecans getting their foot in the door or being introduced to this world. Now, I cannot confirm that, I can't say with 100% certainty that that is true, but we do know that Broken Arrow was working with Element 115, as Ruspin does and suffer the 115-induced memory loss because he can't remember his own name or where he did come from. So that's an easy to understand form of where our kind of transit characters came from and the backstory of where they live, the location, all that sort of stuff. It's kind of broken down into easy to understand bits. But now we know that the Zombies comics is coming out very, very soon. And the first one is actually going to be about how Richtofen got the Krenorium from Stuhlinger. That's going to be the first edition. And then the second one has been revealed as well. And this one is going to be Ruspin going back to Broken Arrow. We know Broken Arrow was destroyed, but it was destroyed in a fire prior to it being overrun, which is really important because it was destroyed before the zombies came. So that's something interesting to think about, but we're going to see exactly why that is very, very soon. But I hope you guys are just as hyped and excited for the Call of Duty Zombies comics books as I am. I mean, this is going to be crazy. Literally, the first one's dropping next month, and there's going to be so much storyline things that we can talk about here on this channel. So we're going to be covered, guys. There's no worries. We will be good to go on that. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I hope you found it informative, and I kind of just want to give you guys some backstory and some insight. And so when we read the Call of Duty comics, it makes sense of what, kind of we're actually looking at here. So anyway, guys, if you did enjoy this, don't forget to leave a like. Really would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Thank you all for watching again, and I will catch you guys on the next one.